Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we're going to be talking about interracial marriage. I have Elizabeth Hudson on the show today, and she's going to share her experience with being in an interracial marriage. So get you something to drink and get a snack and come on back. Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule for being a guest on our show. Why don't we start by you just introducing yourself and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is a relaxing time, I hope so, away from work, so we can talk about the important things in life, about marrying someone that is not from your culture, your country of origin, and what things come out of that.
Yeah.
Beautiful things too. My name is Elizabeth. You know me well.
Yes.
And I'm originally from Nicaragua. I was a young lady, an engineer who came to visit and meet my future husband.
Nice.
And he said to me that we were going to visit his dad and meet his family and then go back to my country where I was already working.
Yeah.
And so that was the first conflict.
Yeah.
when he said, once we were here, we got married, and we never went back.
So how did you guys actually meet? Like, what were you guys at the grocery store? Where you got out for coffee? Like, where did you actually meet him at?
Well, it's God sent. He came to my church. He was singing as part of the choir.
Wow.
He was finishing his college degree. He was a student from Santa Cruz University.
Okay, wow.
And some leaders from the conference of the Methodist Church recommended for him to go to my country. And his father, being a pastor of the Methodist Church, found connections from here to Managua, Nicaragua. Wow. So he went there, and he went to my church. And so the leaders of that church were the in-laws of my brother. And those leaders also were the wife from the United States and the husband from Nicaragua.
Wow.
And so everything started there, and we met at the church. Some of the girls challenged me to invite him to go out, and it started just as a joke, like the song.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you asked him out.
Well, actually, the boys were playing basketball after church.
Okay.
And so the girls would also go watch them.
Yeah.
And so we all went. And when he was resting at the bench, I was talking to him, and I said, the group is planning going to the movies. Would you like to go? And so we all went as a group. And so the girls were teasing me when he went back to play. Would you ask him, for his address or anything? I said, I won't do that, but I will tell him where I work.
Yeah.
And so there's the rest of the story, but I'll see what questions you have for me.
Okay, I like that. So tell me a little bit about your husband. Like, what type of person is he? Laid back? Is he, just a little bit about his personality. Then we're going to get a little bit about your personality.
He's a beautiful human being.
Nice.
Actually, his father, who was a pastor for me, is the closest person to Jesus that I know of.
Wow, nice.
And so not every time that a pastor has children, they'll come up great, right?
Yeah,
It's a reality.
Right.
but he has three, and they're all great kids. And so they didn't have an easy life.
Yeah.
Moving from one church to another. The life of a pastor is that every 5 or so years they move.
Yeah.
And so David grew up moving from city to city, different states as well.
Uh-huh.
And the hard part for him is not to have friends, but
Yeah.
he is. It's hard to describe him in a 30-minute show or
Yeah.
an hour show.
Yeah.
But the results of what we have now after 34 years of being married
Wow.
is that we have three wonderful kids. And I think, not to put myself down,
Yeah.
is the result of who he is.
Oh,
a lot of
nice.
it. Yeah,
Nice.
his character, you know,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
He's the person who people wants to go and talk to, and he
Wow.
will guide you in the right direction.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
You know, I like the fact that you uplifted your husband, because this is the point. I know you and I kind of talked the other day, and we were kind of talking about how, you know, how the Bible tells the women to pretty much to follow their husbands, you know. And so sometimes that's hard in today's society
Right.
because, you know, we have a movement where, you know, a lot of women are single. I knew my mom, she was a single mother. She grew up, and my mother, she's very strong-willed, very strong. And so she got to call the shots, you know. But I respect you for that, because I think that shows strength on your behalf as a wife, as a woman, you know. I think it takes strength for someone to be humble and still be able to maintain a strong personality, you know, so I commend you on that. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about who Elizabeth is, your personality. How did your personality complement your husband's personality?
We're the opposite.
Yeah.
Complete opposite. I like to lead people.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes leaders don't like to listen. They're quick,
Yeah.
fast. They
Yeah.
want to get it done.
Yeah.
And he's very analytical, kind of slow. He's a thinker. You know, I have a lot of that too.
Yeah.
I'm different because first I'm a woman.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have responsibilities at home that socially are different than men
Yeah.
a lot of times.
Yeah.
And plus I come from a different culture.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Nicaragua, and so the expectations of what the marriage should be and
Yeah.
how to raise the children, you know, is different. But he has allowed me to be myself. And
Okay.
so Elizabeth is a strong woman. She grew up in a society where women are pioneers in many things. There was a revolution in my country in 1980, and I was one of the first graduates of a college where traditionally attended by men.
Oh, wow.
So there were probably 1,000 men attending, and maybe 10% were women.
Wow.
And when I was hired at my first job as an engineer, I was the only woman, and I was 23.
Oh, wow.
And so they're all men. I studied agricultural engineering, and so that was a non-traditional career for a woman, and my father warned me on it.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
said, that's for guys.
Yeah.
And so when I started my first job, they were not only men, but older than me. And
Yeah.
so I have never, Elizabeth doesn't like to be dominated by
Yeah.
anyone or anything.
Yeah.
She cooperates, but
Yeah.
she likes to be in control and not controlled by anything or anybody. And so with my husband, my sisters think that I dominate him, but
Yeah.
really not.
Yeah.
We have a great process of give and take.
Yeah. That's good.
And so that's how we have survived and develop, you know, and have a very, very, very good family.
Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah.
Speaking of sisters, how many siblings do you actually have?
I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
where do you fall in that category?
I'm almost the last one.
Oh, wow.
But it happens that I am, from the women, I'm the leader, and from the men, I have a brother who leads, and he's not the first one either. He's
Yeah.
like he's like number 4 because we lost 2 brothers
Okay.
in the process of life. But
Okay.
yeah. But so anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah.
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 I'm the family organizer as well.
I can see that.
Yeah. And people say, when do you do that?
Yeah.
It's funny how it goes.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So let's piggyback about your family. How did your family respond when you brought your husband home? And for the record, we need to clarify, what race is your husband?
He was born in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
His father is from New York,
Okay.
and his mother is from West Virginia, or was from West
Okay.
Virginia.
Okay.
And so
What?
that's where he's from.
So he what is he?
He's white American.
Okay, white American.
6'4", 6 foot
Okay.
4 feet.
Yeah.
6 feet 4
Wow.
inches.
Yeah.
1 foot taller than me, a little more.
Okay. Nice.
So I had to wear high heels.
Yeah, you have to look up.
When we were dating, I
Uh-huh.
had to wear high heels.
Yeah. Wow.
And so in my country, they thought he was Russian.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Because he's so fair skinned, and with the sun, it will get red. And so, and at that time when he visited there in the late mid 80s, there were a lot of people from many countries visiting Nicaragua to see the process of the revolution. So
Yeah.
he was confused as being from Europe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when your family, so before I ask this question,
Uh-huh.
were you expected to marry within your race, within your culture?
No.
Okay, good, good.
I say no because that was clear for me since I was young.
That's good. That's good.
Traditionally, people in my country are, I don't want to get into that, but much
Yeah.
of that, but I didn't see myself marrying someone from Nicaragua because of
Okay.
their thinking, their dreams, their mental limitations sometimes about
Yeah.
who they can be.
Yeah.
My father was probably a good exception on that because of what he did in life, and
Yeah.
he traveled. And so I had boyfriends
Yeah.
before my husband that were
Okay.
from other countries.
Okay, good.
But I
Yeah.
really didn't see myself there. I wanted to be in a relationship and have in the future a family
Yeah.
that would fit my
Personality.
and my dreams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I have a friend who is Hmong, and she's part of an arranged marriage, and so I remember her telling me about how her marriage came about, and both families got together, and then they introduced them, and she didn't have a say so because she's a woman, and when she got with her husband, as the years went on and they started having children, they both vowed that they would not allow their children to be put or set up in arranged marriage. They wanted their children to have the freedom and autonomy to be able to pick the mate that they want to pick. And of course, she said they got some feedback from the families because the families want them to stick to the tradition of their culture. But she said it was mentally drained. She was depressed. She had a lot of anxiety because she didn't know this man and just different things like that. But she adhered to what her culture was wanting her to do. But she said through the years she really, as her and her husband agreed to not put their children through that. And I think that was a good thing that they allowed their children to have the freedom like you did.
Well, I want to share 3 things. The influence of my father, the influence of my grandmother, the influence of my mom, and so that's 3. But above that is it's God, because I intentionally pray for my husband since I was young.
Wow.
And that came from my grandmother.
Wow.
My grandmother said 2 things that I remember, that we have to pray for our husband since we're young.
Yeah, wow.
So it's God who chooses your mate.
That's right. That's right.
And then my grandmother had a saying that finding your couple, your significant other, is like throwing your net in the ocean. You throw the net, and then you bring all kinds of fish out.
Yeah.
And so you get to choose what
nice.
fish you want.
Nice.
And so then my father was very liberal for being in a conservative Catholic country, I would say. So he said, you have the friends that you want, you go out with whoever you think is best.
That's
I trust
awesome.
you, but I'd like you to just introduce me to your future husband. I don't want to know, I think he didn't want to fall in love with who could be my husband in the future.
Right, right.
He wanted to really fall in love with my future husband and develop a relationship with that person.
Wow.
And so that gave me a lot of freedom too in a
Yeah.
country that is not traditionally, raising women that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my mother gave me some advice too along the way, saying he should not drink and he should not have another woman.
Yeah.
And so all those things, you had to listen as a child.
Yeah.
And so those were things that were very strong for me to find, and God sent me my husband.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Did you get any? Was there any resistance from any of your family members? Because apparently your parents was open to you. You know, God giving you the husband that He wanted for you.
Actually, they were, I remember my oldest sister being a big fan of my boyfriend, my future husband.
Oh, nice.
And my mother loved him. I was at that time working and sometimes out of the city. And in our tradition, your boyfriend has to visit your home. And so he would come and probably sometimes ahead of me.
Wow.
And my mom had dinner for him. And since he was visiting Nicaragua and living there for 6 months, he extended his stay because of me to wait for me.
Wow.
Then he made it a tradition to eat at my mom's, but I think he also wanted to eat her food and, connect with the family.
Yeah, that was smart.
Yeah, and he was, a student without a job yet, so he needed us.
Yeah.
And so that's how he learned to eat our food, and he loves our food.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
What type of food do your culture actually normally cook?
Well, Hispanic foods are,
Oh,
they're
just regular.
almost the same everywhere.
Okay.
I think the way that you have to see it is that we use different spices,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's rice, beans. But you eat rice and beans in different ways during the day. You eat rice and beans in the morning. You eat rice alone
Okay.
at lunchtime and separate with the beans. And you may have rice and beans again at night. So, so there is tortillas.
Okay.
There is salads, but we're not big in salads.
Okay.
It's mainly cabbage and tomato. Very simple, but it's delicious, and daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so your traditional daily plate has like 6 things.
Okay.
And my mom, imagine cooking for all of us, how much she had to cook.
Yeah.
She usually had help, but it was a lot of cooking. And so we eat formally 3 times a day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
formally.
Wow.
Now, I became informal in college because I was so busy. She used to chase me with, at least take the orange juice in the morning, because I would eat at my first time, at noontime, because I had to rush to school, to college.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, there are so many things that you can eat that look alike, like from El Salvador or Central American food.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different when you go north, to Mexico.
Yeah.
But like I said, more of the difference is in the spices. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. We don't need as hot as, people from Mexico eat.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you come to America, and you was only supposed to be here a short time and go back to your country. So tell me about that story. What made you stay? How did he get you to stay, and what happened?
Yeah, I was a young engineer, and so I asked permission at my job to just travel for 6 months, like a leave of absence.
Yeah.
And I had to go through some trouble getting a letter of invitation from here to make it look like I was, really coming to do something. And so they knew I was getting married, but I had to present something, that, So anyway, I went through that. We came. My mother came
Oh,
to
really?
to the church. I had a cousin already living in San Francisco.
Oh.
We had our wedding, and because my father-in-law was a pastor and he married us, the women of the church prepared the reception. We came on the 14th of July and we got married on the 19th. So we were sleeping in separate rooms, and my mom was with my cousin.
Yeah.
And so you can see the difference now in culture, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, until you get married,
right?
Yeah, and so we had our marriage. We were on a honeymoon, and then I went to study English. We came in July. In August, I went to college. I said, well, might as well use my 6 months here, right?
Nice.
My stay. But then, as time went by, my husband got a job, like maybe 2 months after as well. And it went from there. So we're still here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Now, if he gets to see this, he'll remember.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So was his family, was there any resistance from his family at all that you was from another country, or everybody was just as open-minded as your family were?
I don't think so, yeah.
That's awesome.
At that point, when we got married, his father was alone. David's mom passed away when he was 16.
Okay.
That's part of who he is.
Yeah.
'Cause that was a very difficult loss for him and his sister and his father.
Yeah.
And so I think that made him stronger persons and more understanding of others.
Yes.
That, the main thing in life is family,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of lost myself from where we were because I got emotional on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was actually, was there any resistance from?
no,
Okay.
no. Actually, the family was always joyful of meeting me.
Wow, that's
yeah.
awesome.
There was, the natural barrier, language.
Yeah.
The language barrier because of my English at that
Yeah.
point. I could understand quite a bit because in my college I had to read books in English.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's different reading from
Speaking.
speaking, and
Yeah.
so it took me a year. My accent is still here, and I
Yeah.
always tell people
Yeah.
I will not change it because I was not born here,
Yeah.
and I could fake it, but
Yeah.
I'm not a fake person.
No, you're not.
So
Yeah.
if it comes out like like it is,
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so anyway, so the family was always welcoming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And actually, his dad was one of my teachers, speaking the language. One time I told my husband, "Why is your dad asking me the same question all the
Yeah.
time?" and he said, so he gave me an answer later. The reason why I was asking you daily, how is your family? Where are your brothers? Tell me about your sister. Is
Yeah.
because I was teaching you English.
Oh, that was clever. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what is some of the let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you guys face in the interracial marriage. 'Cause I know there are challenges when people are not in interracial marriage. So let's talk a bit about some of the challenges, and then we'll talk about some of the pros. So what's some of the challenges that you
Yeah,
think you
yeah.
guys face?
Man, I think you need to probably stop me if I said too many, but I think the main thing is the language barrier.
Okay.
He was able to learn Spanish since he was in high school and
wow.
college, and then when he went to my country, he became fluent.
Oh wow.
And we were
That's interesting.
dating and
Yeah.
reading books, and he was actually bought a big book of 500 words and and pictures, and we were exchanging.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
he could express himself, but not very fluent.
Yeah.
And I was less, at a lower level than him in the language.
Yeah.
And so as we came here, and I went to school, to sharpen my vocabulary and all that, then we decided to keep speaking both languages for him to learn and for me to keep learning it, right?
That's smart.
When the children came along, to
Yeah.
answer your question specifically,
Yeah.
that was a problem for me because I always have wanted my children to be completely fluent.
Yeah.
My husband, at some point in his life, had a job where he had to speak Spanish too. And so one time he said to me, "I really want to speak English in my house."
Yeah.
And this was not with the first child.
Yeah.
I think it was probably with the second one.
Yeah.
And so that was very difficult for me because my first child is fluent.
Yeah.
I went to get my master's degree, and
Yeah.
so I was not working at that time when she came along. And so I had the time to speak to her all the time. So I established that for my children,
Yeah.
Spanish is the first language for them from me.
Yeah.
And from him,
It's
it's English.
English,
But
yeah.
since he's bilingual in Spanish, I wanted him to also have that rule of having Spanish at home
Yeah.
and English outside, because the world here speaks English, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so they can pick it up at school or with their friends. And so my idea was when they come home, Spanish only, right?
Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the result of that is,
Yeah.
because I gave up or I gave in,
Yeah.
I had some summers where I would, sit the children during their summertime and give them classes. It was fun, and it was always like they made fun of it at the same time. you know.
Yeah.
And so, so the result of that is my son is now an engineer too in construction, and he can communicate.
Yeah.
He's not as fluent as my oldest.
Okay.
And the youngest one, who is studying in Italy, she understands me, but she's not fluent in Spanish.
Okay.
She can communicate. She learned to communicate a little better when she went to high school to St. Francis.
Yeah.
And she got serious on her Spanish during taking her classes. She had
Yeah.
a great teacher from Mexico. And so now that she's in Italy, she's learning Italian. And so I think it's easier for her because she learned the grammar in Spanish, but they're not fluent.
Okay.
And
yeah.
so I would have loved for them. And so that's one of the conflicts, right?
Yeah.
Number two, because you asked me, what
Yeah,
are the
yeah,
challenges?
I
So
wanna
stop
hear
me
it.
if you want to know.
No,
right?
let's go.
I
let's
think
go.
I shared that with you,
Yeah.
right? So in my culture, you start dating, you bring your boyfriends home, your parents get to know them, you go out to the movies, you
Yeah.
come back, and in this country, you may not even know who is dating your daughter
Yes. Exactly.
or your son,
Yeah.
for that. And so my oldest daughter, and it's this is in YouTube, right? Is the one who kind of set the way for me to change that part of my culture, to be more flexible,
Yes.
and to understand that life is different in that area here.
Yes. Yes.
And so she has decided for me to know her boyfriend when she wants to,
Yeah.
when she's ready.
Yes.
And she left the house, to live with a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And my expectations were, you leave the house married, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But it's different here, so I accepted it.
Yeah.
Working through my husband, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And so there was one time when I said, let's change the lock in the house.
Yeah.
And my husband said, my daughter will come home whenever she wants to.
Oh, I like that.
And so,
yeah.
because we respect each other, and
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that it's easy. I
Yeah.
have to step back and
Yeah.
and if I want my daughter in my life, then I
Yes.
have to accept her decisions.
Yes.
She was 21 already, so
Yeah.
maybe she was younger than that. Maybe it would have been more resistant.
Yeah.
But I said to myself when I was young, I'm going to be as flexible as I can with my children,
Yes.
so they can grow, personally as much as they can.
Yes.
And so my daughter, if she sees this, she'll say, Mom, you were too hard.
Yeah.
But it was as hard for me.
Yeah.
But now I recognize that, I had to give in
Yeah.
for the right reasons.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I have friends from different cultures, Russian culture and the Ukrainian culture. And that kind of is what happened with one of their sisters. She moved out the house because their expectation is when you leave the house, you leave being married. And one of the sisters actually moved out the house, and she got an apartment, whatever. And then, but she was with this guy, and they struggle with that. They really, really struggle with that because, their own expectations. And, one thing I'm finding out too, Elizabeth, is people from different countries, I find that the younger generation is starting to kind of break that tradition. They're kind of becoming their own person, so to speak. And it seems like as the years go on, at least with the Russian and Ukrainian culture specifically I'm talking about, as the years go on, I find that they don't want to follow a lot of the tradition and a lot of the rules and stuff. I know my friend's sister's pregnant now. Oh, I hope they don't watch this program, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. One of the youngest sisters, pregnant now, and she said that her and her husband is not going to teach their child, their unborn child, they're not going to teach them their Russian Ukrainian language. I thought, wow. I said, why? She said, there's no need for it. We're going to just teach them English. English is what they'll be using, which I thought that was kind of like, because to me, my expectation was you guys are going to teach me y'all language, that's going to be bilingual, but they felt like, they want to move from the tradition of their families and stuff. And I thought that was interesting.
It is, because usually Russian in their, country of origins, they speak more than 3 languages. It's usually they speak 5. So, they need to learn English, but it's very, very helpful to open your mind to become multicultural, to learn many languges. So perhaps, they're saying that English is going to be their main language. And hopefully they can learn the other one because it's really helpful.
It's very
Especially, I mean, in Sacramento, we speak about the melting pot, right?
Yeah.
That we have all kinds of cultures and
Yeah.
people from many countries and
Yeah.
speaking many, many languages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was it? Because you and your husband, obviously, you guys were alone, and you came here then. But how did you guys' marriage change when you started to have children? How'd that change you guys' marriage?
Oh, quite a bit, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
We were without children for 3.5 years,
Wow.
probably 3, because of the pregnancy time. But during that time, we became friends. We dated from February to June.
Okay. Wow.
We met in December, and so, and our dating time was short compared to other couples that that have a long life marriage.
Yeah.
And it was all circumstances because he was only visiting for 6 months in my country. He extended his stay for another 6 months. And so we were at a point in the month of May that, okay, do we stay dating? No, if you're leaving.
Yeah.
So I said to him, it was me who said that.
Yeah.
If you leave, we either break up or get married. It was me to say that because of my personality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we went from there.
Okay. Okay. So when you finally found out you was pregnant and stuff, and
Yeah.
and so what was, how did that change you guys? Did
Right.
once you had
I
the
was
baby?
going there. So we were able then to date for 6 months, very
Okay.
short, and then when we moved here, we made friends at church.
Okay.
Couples our age or friends our age,
Nice.
and we were able to, we were living in Seal Beach, and so it was the perfect place, like Huntington Beach, to go
Oh, wow.
stay at night at the beach and go on boats. I didn't go on the boats because I don't like boats. He did.
Yeah.
We did trip with his father quite a bit because being the pastor, he was very disciplined and taking the church annually to certain places.
Nice.
We went to visit his family. We did all kinds of things. And so
Yeah.
when my first child came along, again, because of my tradition,
Yeah.
and probably here too, but I felt that it was kind of like my obligation to stay very close to my child, being
Yeah.
the mom, becoming
Yes.
a mom.
Yeah.
And so it changed quite a bit because my time was dedicated to her. So you have to at that time start planning time with your husband and not
Yeah.
lose that closeness.
Yeah.
And the other way that it changed is because she was born November 1989, and at that time I was already applying for. I already heard from 3 different universities, and I had to choose a university.
Oh, wow.
And so we during the pregnancy, I had to quit my job while I applied for universities, and then move to the San Luis Obispo area. We bought a home, and I started my master's degree. And so can you believe with
Wow.
a month-old baby
Yeah.
moving, we were just waiting for her to be born.
Yeah.
She was born on the 18th. We moved on the 6th of December, I think.
Yeah. Wow.
And I started my master's January 3rd.
Wow.
And so I was a part-time student for a little while.
Yeah.
And then actually, no, a full-time student, and she was part-time with a babysitter.
Okay.
Now you know that I'm a go-getter and a climber, right?
Yes, I do.
So I asked a special permission to take 18 to 24 credits. And so can you believe how many classes that is? And so our lives changed with our first child.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
And so when the second one came along, we have them in a daycare, in a beautiful daycare place with this lady who had up to 12 kids.
Yeah.
And she was like a mom to them, and so it was time for my daughter to go into preschool.
Yeah.
But we decided not to, so they can be together with my 6 weeks old baby.
Yeah.
And so he is the son who I not gave the time that every mother should give to
Yeah.
at home, and it was really hard for me to give him up.
Yeah.
But he's super strong. He's a strong boy. He's now an engineer, as I said.
Yeah.
So that was part of my sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so, and part of my husband's sacrifice is that because I was becoming a professional after
Yeah.
my master's and during my master's, I had to be at the Chamber of Commerce doing,
Yeah.
night meetings. So my husband's role was to take care of the kids at night as well,
Yeah.
and weekends.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that. Ooh, so
Yeah.
let's back. That's a lot.
That's
so
a lot,
how
yeah.
did you get through?
I look back and I don't know how I did it, just because
Yeah.
we're super strong.
Yeah, being a
Yeah.
new mom, you just moved to a new area,
Yeah.
and then you started your master's program because it's very
Yeah,
intense.
I did my master's in 5 quarters, if you know what that means.
Yeah, I do know what that means. That's yeah. Wow.
And so I was in a hurry because I needed to, give my family a better situation. We had a small home in Santa Maria,
Yeah.
2-bedroom home, a humble beginning.
Yeah.
But we had all the skills and all the support
Yeah.
for us to, move to something,
Yeah.
better.
Wow.
Better.
Yeah.
And my husband started his work with the States ever since.
Yeah.
I don't want to say which year because I don't recall, but I think it was 1990 or 1991. And ever
Yeah.
since he's been working for the States. So that's
Wow.
why we have been able to provide to our children Christian education,
Yeah.
private education, which is super expensive.
Yes.
We both naturally agreed on giving them that opportunity to go to Christian schools.
Yeah.
And we could have a lot of money at the bank,
Yeah.
which we don't have.
Yeah.
But our children receive the best education that they can have.
Yeah.
2 of our kids went to Catholic school, the most expensive schools here, because they offer a great academic program.
Yeah.
Our son went to Jesuit, and our daughter went to St. Francis,
Yeah.
all boys and all girls school.
Yeah.
We are Methodist, and we send them to Catholic schools to get, what we think is the best education.
Yeah.
Our daughter now, you know her, she's an entrepreneur.
Yes. Yes.
And the youngest one is in Italy studying film.
Yes.
And our son is one of the engineers building high rises in LA.
Oh, wow.
So what more can you ask after so much sacrifice?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So you poured into their life. So as you guys climb the ladder
Yeah.
of age, then
Yeah.
they can pour back into you guys' life and help you guys out if you need it when you get to that when that
Right.
time
It was
comes.
not easy.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
So
nice.
did you, do you feel like, was there any excitement about becoming a new mother and just, because you had a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Or you just kind of, during the practice, just like, okay, I'm just going to suck it in, but then I got other things I
Well,
need to do.
See, that's another tradition, right? Usually in my country, your parents help you. You take the
Yeah.
child to your mom
Yeah.
or friends or, family members. Here I had my cousin. She had her own life. I think I have one of my sister-in-law already moved here. And my mom was coming every 6 months to help me, but not all the time. So she
Okay.
became a U.S. resident as well.
Okay.
And so, but she had her home and her things back where we belong,
Yeah.
or we were born. And so it was hard not to have my mom all the time,
Yeah.
especially doing all these things.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
So when did you become like a resident of the United States? So like what your status?
at that time when you married a citizen, it's
Okay,
really quick.
Okay, yeah.
It's very quick. And so I came in July.
Yeah.
By October, I already had all my paperwork, and then by December, I already had my residency.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you have to wait by law, and I think it's still the same, 3 years to become a citizen.
Yeah.
So I became a citizen, I think, in 1990.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you the only siblings from your family that to come over here in the United States, or did they eventually migrate over
They
here?
actually came on their own with their own way of doing. The only person that I petitioned was my mother.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I petitioned my youngest sister too. But now, she's married to her husband and all that, and so they all follow their own way.
Yeah.
So it was my mom, and I actually petitioned my father, but he decided not to, and because he had visa and he can travel, anywhere he wanted to, whenever he wanted to, and he had
Yeah.
no plans to live here anyways.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and usually families bring a lot of families. I have not done that.
So it's not a lot of you guys.
No,
over
they
here.
all have. We do. Yeah, we do have a great part of our family, but they all have come on their way because they have their own means.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. So raising the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of mom were you to the kids as they started to grow up, especially with the
That's
girls?
a question for the kids.
Yeah.
But they make a lot of fun of me
Yeah.
sometimes.
So what do your kids say about you?
Okay, I'm going to tell you one of the things that
Yeah.
probably stay in their mind. I
Yeah.
lost a brother. He drowned in the water.
Okay.
So when we got our home here in Sacramento, it was our first home, and we still have it. Our second home, but we still have it. So my husband is a swimmer, and so he taught the children how to swim. And so whenever he was teaching them, I'll run away.
Yeah, really?
I'll go in my
Oh.
room, and I'll sometimes watch from the window.
Yeah.
And so because that always traumatizes
Yeah, it's a
me.
trigger, yeah.
Yeah, it was a trigger for me to think about my brother, but then
Yeah.
I trusted my kids to him, and so
Yeah.
they're swimmers.
Yeah, oh, wow,
The
nice.
three of them.
Wow, nice.
And so yeah, and I get in the pool with them, and lately, probably in later in life when they were teenagers,
Yeah,
but I wasn't there so much present while they were learning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I don't know how to swim.
Yeah.
I don't care for it at all.
Yeah, and so they can see. They like my food.
Yeah.
I make some. It's from my mom. It's chicken in different ways, but I'm not the greatest cook. It's my oldest sister.
Okay.
She can do all kinds of Nicaraguan food and
Yeah.
deliciously made and perfectly made. And my youngest sister, she can do it. And I'm gonna have her watch this YouTube.
Yeah.
She can make the food, but she has to see it in YouTube and follow it step by step.
Oh, nice.
She has her own taste, but she's very methodological. I can say that
That's
word, but
all right.
she likes to follow steps.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she's an engineer too, and she doesn't like to deviate from the formula,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if they say a quarter of that, she'll do a quarter of that, not a little more nor a little less. So.
Yeah.
But she cooks well too. So
Yeah.
I'm the one. They make fun of my cooking, my sisters,
Uh-huh.
because I chop things in bigger sizes, and I'm quicker, and
Yeah.
I just want to get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
But they like my food too, my kids.
Yeah.
And my husband too.
Yeah. So what did you say when your son came to you and said he wanted to go in the path of being an engineer? Because you was once an engineer. Were you glad about that, or were you just kind of...
It's kind of like a long story, but I'm going to make it short. So he wanted to be an architect. And so it is a very sweet story. That part I'm going to make it short, and remind me if I get off track. One time he went to Nicaragua, I think he was 9, and he came back. Let me go back. When he was 5, I think, or 4, he used to visit his dad at the Employment Development Department where he works.
Yeah.
And one time he came home and he said, Mom, he said, I want to be like the guy who has that thing to clean, to clean places.
Yeah.
And I think, you mean a janitor, honey? He said, that's fine if that's what you like.
Yeah.
Because he was good friends with that man's son.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to be like his dad. Then he went to my country one of the times that he visited, and he visited my brother. My brother's a civil engineer. And he's not any civil engineer because he has built many buildings in Nicaragua.
Wow.
The Social Security, churches, 2 malls,
Wow.
the automotive company, the largest one in Managua.
Yeah.
And so when he came back, he said, Mom, I want to be like my Uncle Freddie.
Oh, wow.
And so his Uncle Freddie is very proud of him because he followed his footsteps.
Yeah.
And so my son was a rugby player in college. And so he almost did not become an architect or an engineer.
Yeah.
And so when he started in the architecture, the School of Architecture. And a year later said, Mom, I really want to be a regional planner.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, which is construction. It has construction and architecture. It's, it's kind of like a mixture. So he was already a football player baseball player since he's a child, then a football player in high school, and then he ended up being, I think his last year in high school, a rugby player.
Yeah, wow.
And he became a star in Arizona State. He graduated as the one of the 6 most important, athletes of the university when he graduated, and I think that's accurate.
Wow.
He can correct me if he wants to, but the story is that he was at a point in his life where he almost became a professional rugby player.
Wow.
And when he came, just to answer the question and see how much I have changed, right?
Yeah.
He said, Mom, what do you think? And, he asked us, and I said, well, we didn't pay your school for you to become a rugby player.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if that's what you like, you go for it.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna be successful in anything he wants.
Yeah. Wow.
He's so focused and disciplined. He's incredible. I knew I was gonna have a good boy, but he has really surpassed my expectations. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so he got an offer, and he went to work for that company for 3 months. Then he got called for the company he really wanted to work for.
Wow.
And he's still there. I think he's worked for them 3 years now.
Wow, nice.
And he's very successful. So that will answer your question about,
Wow. Is he here in Sacramento or is he?
He's in LA.
LA. Wow.
Yeah, he's
nice.
only 26.
Wow.
Yeah, he's only 26, and that's the amazing part of everything.
Yeah, so he got a long.
They gave him responsibility when he was 24, and I was teasing him, saying, "Son, don't you think those buildings are gonna fall apart?" But when we go to LA now, we have the privilege of staying where to those buildings. Now it's 3, I think.
Wow.
That he has helped build.
Yeah.
And he has never said to us, how about how good of an employee he is.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been this way. We go there and we find managers, on the hallway, people in the elevators, and he's with us, and they say, "Oh my God, thank you for your son."
Wow.
Oh, this is because of a lot of Cameron.
Yeah.
And so he's very humble, and I really love that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys instilled education in him, and you guys just kind of because I know some parents, I have friends who have kids, younger kids, of course, and they feel like education is not for everybody, but they feel like their kids may have a skill, whether it's a plumber,
He's in the right place.
Okay, good.
He's in the right place. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He loves his work so much that he's the first one to come, the last one to go.
Yeah.
Kind of like mom, you can say that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it helps because that employer in those, they're apartment living type of buildings.
Yeah.
And so they have everything, all the amenities. Why do you want to go home, right? They have movie theaters, they have gyms.
Yeah.
And he works out daily.
Yeah. Wow.
And his friends are there, and so he doesn't have family close by except his grandmother.
Yeah.
He visits her when we're there.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he's a workaholic. He's a dedicated person, and he has real goals.
Yeah.
And he loves what he does. I mean, when you love your work, it doesn't feel like work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know I met your daughter who has her own business. So how did she get into being an entrepreneur?
She can tell you. You can interview her.
Okay.
But I think she's brave.
Yeah.
It's a lot of undertaking.
Uh-huh.
I watched her setting up this business that you have visited. I did not watch what she did in San Jose.
Yeah.
She has had some involvement in not in the setup, but in the development of the business.
Yeah.
But on this one, we watched her, and she works really, really hard.
Yeah.
She has other dreams.
Mm-hmm.
She loves homes in Georgia, and so I said, I see myself visiting you in the South.
Yeah, nice.
But she's not there yet.
Yeah.
She is, I would say, the image of her father when it comes to character.
Yeah.
She's sweet, understanding. She listens.
Yes.
She's so soft when you meet her.
She is.
If you meet my son, he's the opposite, but he, in a lot of ways, he's like me. He's
I picked that
kind
up.
of like rough on the side, you know. And we're quick and fast.
Yeah, and focused.
Yeah. So it's
yeah, that's.
And my youngest daughter, not to leave her
out.
Yeah. She's kind of like the mixture of the two. It's so interesting.
Okay.
That's very interesting.
Let's talk a little bit about her character.
Yeah. Yeah. She has the sweetness of her dad, and she has probably my roughness, or I call myself rough because sometimes I'm too strong to people.
I don't think so,
but in a good way, right? In a good way.
Yeah.
And so she's focused. She knows what she wants. She doesn't doubt what the next step is.
Yeah.
Not that my oldest daughter does, but it's different the way they plan and the way they do things.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't see herself living in the United States.
Yeah.
And I said, well, David, that's just like you and me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so She was applying here, and I took her back home to see one of the top universities there, which is a campus of a university in the United States.
Yeah.
Back in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
Private school, and I was looking for a place where she could really learn Spanish. So
Yeah.
my brother looks close to that university.
Yeah.
And I say, you live with my brother, you learn Spanish, you stay a year or two, and then you transfer to whatever you want to.
Yeah.
But it happens that things went politically not the right, the wrong way there, and not to say too much about it, too much uproar, let's say.
Yeah.
And so the lady from admissions from the University of Nicaragua, she gave us great direction about where to apply for the same things in the University of Rome.
Yeah.
And so that university where she goes in Rome is a campus of a university in, I think, Washington,
Yeah.
D.C., I think, not
Yeah.
a state. And so she's there fulfilling her dream. I always remind her, you're not a tourist, you're a student, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in Italy, you want to go see things.
Yeah.
But so they have established, now this is her second semester, but actually because of her credits here,
Yeah.
she went directly to sophomore year.
Yeah.
So for the freshman year, she only had to do one semester.
Yeah.
So you can see how well ahead she is.
Yeah. Wow.
And on her break with her sisters and friends, whoever, lives with her,
Yeah.
they go and visit other countries.
Okay.
These
Wow.
kids are no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to get married and have kids? Because it really do sound like you have a successful marriage, in my opinion. You guys have beat the odds in a sense where you're moving from another country, coming here. You guys raised 3 beautiful children. They're successful in their own right. And I think a lot of it had to do with parenting and your faith in God, of course. So what advice would you give someone who is want to enter the marriage, what I call marriage ministry? What advice would you give to them? Because I know sometimes there's highs and lows, and it's those periods when you just kind of like, oh, it has its own challenges. But what advice can you give someone that want to get married and that can just stay married no matter what challenges that may come ahead?
There is no model pattern that I would, recommend.
Yeah.
But first, give yourself to God and ask for the right person.
Yes.
That's super important.
Yeah.
Because God does answer questions.
Yeah.
Secondly, if it's from another, culture, race, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it, be really open because your life is going to change.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, if you want to stay with that person, your life is going to change.
Yeah.
Your culture is, all those things. It's going to get mixed, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful when it mixes.
Yeah.
And then be patient with each other because there's going to be crisis, and they're going to be heavy crisis,
Yeah.
and sometimes even depression or,
Yeah.
And so give yourself time and do not have family early.
Okay.
Know each other well, become friends. And
Yeah.
I think that goes for any marriage,
Yeah.
but especially for, couples with different cultures.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
important because you
yeah.
have to know their language, their food, their likes and dislikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be my advice.
Yes, and I think that's a good advice. I'm really glad that you came out and did this interview because, I think so many people, and although we do have a very diverse country here in America, but there are still that hesitation for people to date outside their race because they're comfortable. You kind of, you live in your norm, this is your territory, but once you step out and enter another atmosphere as far as race is concerned, you kind of have to be open-minded. You want to be being able to accept people for who they are, being able to accept their traditions and things like that, but I think when you do that, you have to go in with your heart.
Right.
And
think about this. There's another big influence of the life that we live now. We're becoming global.
Yeah.
And so people travel. Now the internet, right?
Yeah.
People know each other from the internet. Doesn't matter where you are,
Yeah.
right? Physically.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the percentage of racial marriage is, But as we progress in becoming, in the process of globalization,
Yeah.
then, most likely you're going to meet somebody of another culture.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, we have run out of time, and I thank
Okay.
you so much for just coming and just sharing your story about you and your wonderful family. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been a joy, and hopefully this is a good,
Yeah.
program for those watching.
Yes, for sure.
If not funny,
Yes,
if at all.
that's good. It's good. And that's it for today's edition of Mental Health Matters. If you like this particular show, if you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you would like a DVD copy of this particular show, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you. And that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it goes.